And welcome into another edition of Monday Night Sports Talk here on 740 AM WCXZ, 91.3 FM WLMU, as well as LMU TV and LMU Community TV. Here we are, the middle of November. As some seasons are ending, more seasons are beginning.
Yeah, and the weather doing the same thing. Cold and blustery November day. Wasn't really prepared for that.
I don't want to talk about the weather.
Yeah.
I'm not a big snow person. Adam, Haley, and Scott Erland sitting along with you. Starting off our show tonight with a very special guest in studio. Former, now retired head coach Barry Liles is in the house. Barry, welcome to Monday Night Sports Talk.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
We're going to talk with Barry a little bit about the 2014 Claiborne High School football season. The 12 years he was at Claiborne High School. We'll talk about the playoffs it is and the new realignment now that coach doesn't have to worry about these new teams coming in. But let's start off with the 2014 season. It was one there was a lot of hype about with Claiborne, but there were off-the-field distractions as well as it seems like the storyline every year, injuries really jumped into it. What was supposed to have been a promising season unfortunately falls to 2-8. Talk about the season as a whole or for the 10 games you had.
Well, I was like everybody else, thought we'd have a very good year this year. The team had worked hard in the off season to get ready for it, and felt very good going in, and played well our first 3 or 4 ball games, and then the injury bug just kept creeping in and really got to us, I guess, week 6 against West Green when we lost Dalton and Dylan Lee both at the same time. And that was just a big blow offensively and defensively. Both of them played defense, started for us on defense as well as offense. So that was a big blow, and then just kept losing kids after that. We lost Ricky Hatfield to a broken hand. We lost players for a game or two to concussions and other injuries. And, it just got to the point where we couldn't find enough fingers to stick in the dike to take care of all the injuries, and so wound up going from a very good year to one that we were afraid could happen if we got the wrong injuries, and that's just exactly what happened to us.
Could you look back at any point of the season and thinking if we didn't have this particular injury, this would have been the turning point? I know you mentioned the West Green game, the Lee twins were both there, and you were in that game until they both started going down. Is that the turning point of the season?
I think it is. I felt like we win that ball game. We had taken the ball down the possession before and scored, and had gotten it the next possession. The next time we had the ball and started right back down the field with it again. And we're moving it and doing just what we expected we needed to do. And then Dalton went down, and it just seemed to take the air out of us, at least for the first half, and that's when they scored their 2 touchdowns and went up on us. And even at that point, we came back late in the ball game and drove down to inside the 20, and weren't able to put it in. But we felt like that was kind of the turning point for us is that ball game, and if we have them and have they stay healthy, and we win that ball game, then I feel like we've got a good chance in most of those games after that.
I look back over the past, this may go back maybe 5 or 6 years, and we talked about injuries. It seemed like the quarterback position was one spot you and your team always got hit. It seemed like year in and year out with the injury. It kind of started back, and I can't remember what year it was, but we traveled to Cott County for that first game of the year, and Cody Malone goes down on the first play of the game, and it seemed like from there it was just hard to keep a quarterback in rotation.
Yeah, I know. It seemed that way. And, you go in every year and you kind of know that if you get 1 or 2 of these players hurt at a school like ours, you just don't have enough athletes that you can absorb having your best player go down. And that year when Cody went down, he was the best ball player we had, definitely our best quarterback. When he went out as a senior, we brought in a sophomore who had never played quarterback or had never started a game at quarterback before, and wound up having to play that position just about all year, and just very hard to overcome. And, it's been that kind of thing on and off since that time. And I don't know what it is. I don't think it's anything that much different. I mean, these kids lifted weights, and they were all tough. Dalton and Dylan both had done a great job in the weight room, and it was just, with an ACL, there's just nothing you can do to strengthen the tendons around that to keep that from happening. And I don't know. I wish I did, but it gets frustrating at times when you and the players and their teammates work as hard as they have, and then to lose players like that for a season.
The 2014 schedule, we're back up to 10 games after the 9 from 2013. 7 of your 10 opponents this past season all went to the playoffs. Union County, Cumberland Gap, and Granger were the only 3 not to make the postseason. That's a very tough schedule.
It was, and as I look back over the course of the year, it hit us that yes, this was a very tough schedule. And we knew that going in, but again, we felt like we had a good football team at that point as well. And Scott County, Pigeon Forge, some of these non-region games that we had, very good teams with returning players, very strong up front. And I think a lot of times this season when we lost ball games, we lost it up front, and we were starting 2 and 3 sophomores up in our front line, and they played hard, did a good job for us, but they were just outmatched by juniors and seniors that were bigger and stronger than they were at times.
It seemed like looking over some of the previous schedules, you, being the person that scheduled these games, were not afraid to go after tougher teams.
Well, no. I would like to have easier ball games. It's just in the way that things were structured right now. Everybody was looking in this new alignment and the way they did things in the playoffs. Every ball game counted, and it was just hard to find people to play. We just wound up taking the games that we could get at some point. I mean, it was you'd tried to play people that you'd played in the past, and they weren't playing you anymore, and so you just had to step up and play the people that were willing to. And it's still a hard thing to do. It's still hard to find schedules. That's why you hear Alcoa and Maryville and those teams especially. I can imagine how hard it is for them to try to find a ball game, because nobody wants to go out there and get beat like that. And so it's hard to find games. And so, yeah, good schedule.
I have to admit that you all tricked me in the last game against Granger. I'm setting up in the press box, and I'm watching the warm-ups for the game. And I look down, and I see Dalton Lee throwing the football. So I was like, okay, that's a decoy. And I didn't know it until about a week later. Dalton Lee's number comes out on the field, but it wasn't Dalton. Am I correct in that?
I believe so, yes.
So I actually got fooled and did not realize it until a week later. What was the mastermind behind? I mean, I understand putting the number 7 out there because Granger's looking for Dalton. But what was the mastermind about putting the 7 out there and it not being Dalton at that point? Was he just that injured with the ACL? Well,
Dalton wanted to go out and go out and at least be on the field for warm-ups on his last game, and I understood that. And I think he also wanted to play with Granger's mind a little bit, so we didn't have a problem with that either. And some of the other players just wanted to wear his jersey number in honor of him, and that's why they wore 7 out there and in the ball game. They just wanted to honor Dalton and everything he meant to the team by at least getting his number out on the field for the last game.
Who wore number 7?
Tell you the truth, I don't remember.
I again, a week later, I'm like, because we called that entire night that Dalton Lee was in at wide receiver, and we're like, how is this kid playing on a torn ACL? I want to find out a week later that we had been fooled.
Now, I'd had a couple of players talk to me about wearing his number that night, and I don't remember who had it on at that point.
Okay. Now, after that game, which you fall 34-6, the following morning it comes out that you have announced your intent to retire from Claiborne High School. 12 seasons at Claiborne High School. What was behind the factor of retiring at this point?
I was just tired. Football takes a lot out of you, and it's pretty much continuous anymore. We would have gave them off a couple of weeks, probably 2 or 3 weeks, and then we would have came back and got back in the weight room, and we would have been in the weight room pretty much 3 days a week till spring practice. So we'd have given them off for Christmas break, and then we'd be back in there, and so it's not that you ever get to go home at 3 o'clock. I mean, we were home at 4:30, 5 o'clock even at that time, and then you go through spring practice, and then you go into summer workouts, and then you go into you get the dead period for 2 weeks, and then you're back to football again, and you're doing passing leagues and summer practice, and it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of time. And I just felt like at the end of this season that I wasn't ready to go back into the weight room, didn't have the energy to put forth that I knew I was going to put forth for another year. And I had been thinking about it, a little bit over time and praying about it, and it just seemed like the Lord was telling me this is the time you need to stop. So I stopped.
I don't think a lot of people actually understand what all goes into being the head coach. I mean, obviously you said the weight room, the summer leagues, the passing leagues and stuff, but you also could keep up. I imagine you got to do some fundraising. I know about every week when I went and talked to you, you were getting ready to hit the field to mow and paint and all that. There was a lot of stuff that a head coach has to do that's maybe behind the scenes that a lot of people don't realize the coach has to go through.
No, probably 90% of what we do, and not just me, and assistant coaches as well, they're the ones out there helping me paint and do the weight room, and they put in a lot of time as well. And, probably 90% of what I do isn't what you would think of as football and what we ought to be doing. If it was just practice and if it was just the games, then that's the easy part. It's just all the other things that go along with it. It's the mowing of the fields. It's the taking care of equipment. It's the time you spend watching film and finding ball games and just all the things you have to do over the course of a year to get ready. And it is quite time consuming.
Talk about the assistant coaches that was on your staff for the 2014. I know a lot of them had already made decisions before it was announced that you were retiring. There was a lot of them that was already making their decisions. They were going to go, kind of like you said, they got tired. They were going to go home and rest.
Yeah, we've had a good staff, but one of the things that has been really good for us is how consistent our staff has stayed. Todd Shackelford's been with me ever since I've been here, so 12 years. Now, he wasn't always with me at the high school, but he was either at the middle school for a while coaching them and then back with me helping. Don Hodges, who has been with me for 8 years. Ted Stone, who's been with me for 7 or 8 years, and these guys, they all come out and Don Hodges and Ted are both volunteer coaches. They come out and help because they want to, not because they have to, and surely not because of the money that we make. And they got tired as I did. Now, what a lot of people don't know is that Coach Hodges, the week that we played Scott County, had a heart attack on Wednesday and is in the hospital. He gets out on Friday, and the following Tuesday he's back at practice. And he says he'd already told me he was retiring and was getting out, but he says I'm going to finish this season. I'm not stopping. Mm-hmm. And Ted Stone was going to have a surgery on his leg that the doctors wanted him to have in September, and he says I'm not having this surgery until football season's over with. He says I'm not leaving this team until we're done. And those are the type of assistant coaches that I have. I mean, they thought more of football and this team than they did about their own health. And they worked extremely hard. Great men, did a great job coaching and bringing up, helping our players become young men. And I couldn't be more proud of our whole staff. Jamie Snow, who works here at LMU as a security guard, comes over and helps us as well, and has again for 12 years. So we've had a lot of consistency on the staff, and I can't tell you enough good things about these men.
12 seasons at Claiborne High School. I think the way I read, you're the longest tenured coach ever in Claiborne County, whether it be Blue Dove or Bulldog history. You're the only coach ever in Bulldog history at the moment. 48 victories, which is the most in Claiborne County history. You hosted 2 playoff games and really was 2 plays away from moving on to the second round. You lost in a Hail Mary to Brainerd and a busted play to Scott the following year. You had 2 8-3 seasons. Looking back over the 12 seasons, is there one particular memory that is going to stand out when you're sitting at home on Friday nights?
No, not really. I guess the Hail Mary play that got us beat against Brainerd, you always remember the losses more than you remember the wins. And seeing that play happen on the last play when we've got a chance to win a playoff game and get to move on, that one probably hurt as much as any of them. Again, the one with Scott County hurt as well. That's the one thing. I guess that's one of those things that you kind of have a list of things you want to accomplish, and getting to the playoffs was what we really wanted. And but to win a playoff game was our ultimate goal, and to move on in the playoffs. It wasn't just win one game. We wanted to move on, second, third, fourth round, as deep as we could get. And so I guess the one that hurts the most are the playoff games that we lost.
Is there a particular opponent that stands out in the 12 seasons? Obviously, I know Cumberland Gap does because that was the rival, and you ended up going 7-5 against them. But is there any other opponent you kind of stand out, or you kind of think back and go, that was a series that made high school football a lot of fun?
The Granger County series has always been Rutledge. Back when Mark Hammer was there, was always a great series. I can remember playing them back at the old field when they were still Rutledge, and we had Ryan Helton and Jared and that bunch, and they had kind of had our number up to that point. And we go over there, and it is a slobber knocker of a football game. Both sides just laying it all on the line, and we win that ball game. And I think that was one of the turning points for us as a team, to know we could go over there and beat a good physical, strong Rutledge team, and to be able to do something like that, because they had been a very good football team and had been very well coached, and to go over and beat that bunch, we felt very good about that. And that was another one of those series that we really enjoyed, is the Cumberland, the Granger and Rutledge series.
Let's talk about the series with Cumberland Gap. The first 3 years, it goes Cumberland Gap's way, and eventually Claiborne starts turning the tide, and now you have the longest winning streak in that series history. I believe it's at 6 games now with Claiborne over Cumberland Gap. You finish off 7-5 against the Panthers. That has to be something sweet.
It is, yeah. Anytime you can beat your big rival, that's great. And to be able to say we've done it 6 years in a row now is a point of pride for our kids. We've got seniors now that can leave and say we never lost to Cumberland Gap. And we've got not just one team or 2 teams now that can do that, 3 teams. So, it's very good for those kids to be able to walk out and when you see these people 20 years down the road, 30 years down the road, that's still something you can be proud of and talk about. So we are very proud of that. They've worked very hard. And it's always been a very good series. Most years it's very, very close ball game. It comes down to the last play or two. So it's always been a good series, good healthy rivalry between the two. So, but it's good to have the lead when you're leaving.
Since you're leaving, 12 years again at Claiborne High School, you're retired. What does retirement hold for Barry Liles? A guy that's been in coaching for as long as he can probably remember. What does retirement hold?
Well, that's a good question. Excuse me. When I told you I was praying about whether to leave or not, I felt like the Lord was telling me it was time to go. I just forgot to ask him what I'm supposed to do next. So that's what I'm trying to figure out right now. I think my wife's got a lot of things written down for me that I'm going to get to do for a while, but I don't know. I think one of the things I've always said I'd like to do is just sit back and pick the best game of the week and go to that ball game and watch it. And I think that's what I'm probably going to do next year on Friday nights, is just go pick out the best game around in the area and go watch it.
I didn't know if there was going to be some hunting on the list, fishing. Some people, when they retire, they play golf. I know about the honeydew list. I already know about that. I imagine one of the things on the list is being Papaw. I know that has got to be something that you're really looking forward to being, right?
I am. I've got a grandson that's 18 months old, and he loves football right now. So he would come to practice every day and watch, and the players would all carry him around, and he's got a football at the house he carries around, a helmet he puts on. So he likes football, and I'm going to chase him around and have a good time with him and just be his Papaw for a while and enjoy that. And yeah, I hear about hunting and fishing and golfing, and I'm going to try those things back out. I did find my gun the other day and found my golf clubs, so I'm going to dust them off and see if they still work.
Before we start talking about, I want to talk about the new region, which is no longer the Blue Ridge; it's now the Mountain 8. I've got to figure out how I'm going to put this here. We've discussed a little bit with about Greenville and about the Blue Ridge Athletic Conference as different things. How happy are you now knowing that you won't have to play this team that is just this monstrous bully of the playground?
Well, I guess no matter where you go, you've always got one of those teams. It seems like everywhere I've been, there's always been that one bully that's hard to beat. And so, yeah, getting away from Greenville is not going to hurt my feelings any. You're still going to have people like Elizabethton in that new district that are going to be a lot of that same, maybe not as good as Greenville, but pretty close. So you're still going to have people you got to aim for and try to get to, and there's nothing bad about that, I guess. I mean, our aim was to try to beat Greenville, so you have to get better and better every year to try to get to that point where you can stay with them, and that was our aim, and our motto when we played Greenville was, why not us? Why can't we be the one to beat them? Somebody's going to need to beat them at some point, so why not be us? So, we never got that. Were able to do that in this conference, but it's not going to hurt my feelings not being around them for a while.
So the Mountain 8 Conference, you've seen it: Chucky Doe, Claiborne, Elizabethton, Johnson County, Northview Academy, Pigeon Forge, Unicoi, and West Green. I want to ask you about Northview Academy. What do you know about? I just found out last week their mascot's the Cougars. What do you know about Northview Academy?
Well, you know more about it than I did then, because I know where it's at. I know their coach. I've talked to him a couple of times, and I've talked to some people. I know they've played JV ball the last 2 years. They started out with a freshman group 2 years ago. This year they were freshmen and sophomores. Next year they'll be freshmen, sophomores, and juniors, and then 2 years from now they'll have all 4 classes. So I do know that. I know that that the people that they've played in JV ball said that they were a very good football team. So I see them coming in and being a fairly strong team from the beginning. So you'd like to think of them maybe as an expansion team, and like the NFL where everybody comes in and gets to beat on them for a year or two, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to come in and kind of hit the ground running and be one of those teams that are going to have to fight very hard to beat every year.
I already know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Do you wish you'd have had this system the past couple of years as opposed to playing 3A and 4A squads hoping for an automatic qualifier or a wild card?
I like knowing what you had to do to be in the playoffs, and I like the fact that your district games matter. I mean, up until 4 or 5 years ago, it had been in our head for the last 20 years that your district games really meant something. And with the system that we've had these last few years, the district games didn't. I mean, they meant some, but they didn't mean nearly as much as what they'd meant in the past. You could actually get in the playoffs and never win a district game. And I know there was 1 or 2 teams that had done that in the past, and it was just kind of blew my mind that you could get in the playoffs and never win a district game. So I like this system better. I like knowing who I have to beat to get in the playoffs, and who I'm going to play. For the most part, I'll have a pretty good idea by mid to late, by the 6th, 7th, 8th game of the season, who I'm going to play in the playoffs, so I can get ready for that. So, I like being able to tell my kids, all right, here's the games we've got to win. You beat these people, we can be in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And I like that. And I'd never liked coming in on Saturday. For the last 2 years before this one, they took 32 teams to the playoffs, and we were number 33 both years. And I came in on Saturday morning last year thinking we probably were in the playoffs, or 2 years ago we were in the playoffs. But a team over in West Tennessee had won a game the night before and beat somebody in a different division that knocked us out of the playoffs. So, yeah, I didn't care for that system very much.
Let's talk about the playoffs here for just a little bit, and we'll get you out of here. Class 4A, the top 8 teams in Quad 1 was Fulton. Then you had Sullivan South, Greenville, Catholic, Elizabethton, Carter, and then you found Sullivan East and Scott County. All those teams were 7-3 or better. If your team makes the playoffs, it probably moves Catholic out, but you're still going to play Fulton. And me and Scott have classified Quad 1 was essentially the quad of death this season in Class 4A. Has there been any surprises to you in Quad 1 so far, with it being Fulton and Sullivan South in the quarterfinals?
No, I mean, you had this year and last year were the same way. You had probably 4 out of the best 5 teams in the state were all in this quad, and so, yeah, it's a killer. You had Greenville in this quad, you have Catholic in this quad, Fulton, Sullivan South. All those are ranked in the top 4, 5, 6 all season long, and then for all them to be put in there together, though, I guess the only thing that surprised me was they put Catholic in the quad and had them playing Fulton in the second round. I would have thought that would have been, I thought they'd cut the TSSAA would try to split that up a little bit more and not have them play them until the third or fourth round. But yeah, I mean, whoever comes out of this quad, I think is going to be the state champion. This is by far the toughest quad anywhere in the state. You've
played Fulton before. You've played Catholic before. Looking back, is there a team that you can think of that was by far the best team we ever played while we was at Claiborne?
Both those teams were great. The Fulton team had the Rogan kid that played at UT, and then Catholic had the Smith that is playing in the NFL right now, playing for the Vikings at free safety. And both those people were great and had a great team around them. I would say if I was picking one or the other, I would say the Fulton team was probably the best. They had just so many athletes that you just could. It's just pick your poison. If you wanted to stop one, if you wanted to stop Rogan, you could stop him, but then they were going to throw it over your head. They had defensive linemen that could run probably as fast as most of our running backs did. So they were just a very athletic, very talented team.
I know you're going to miss the football game as part of the coaching aspect, but I have to ask, one of the things when you always talked about, it seemed like every week, was mowing that field. That was essentially, that was your child away from home. How much do you think you're going to miss keeping up with that field, and how great is your yard going to be now that you can tend to it the way you did the football field?
Well, I told my wife we were going to have the best looking yard in the neighborhood now. So, yeah, I don't know if I guess I kind of enjoyed mowing the field. It was my time to kind of get off and think. And not too many people bother you while you're mowing because I guess they're afraid you're going to ask them to do it if you stop. So, not too many people bothered me during that time. So I guess the reason I like mowing so much is just because I got to get off by myself and think for a while. But, yeah, I'm going to have a great-looking yard now.
Our former program director his mother now lives 2 houses down from you. He would have, if he was still here, he would have easily paid you to come down and mow his yard also. Well, Coach, I want to thank you not only for coming in tonight but also for helping us out with our production and our football coverage for the past 12 seasons. Anytime we had an idea, you were right there to open up the door and let us experiment with TV, radio coverage, pregame, postgame interviews, anything. So I want to thank you for that. And I'm sure we'll talk to you again while you're enjoying the golfing and the hunting and the fishing. And I'm sure being Papal.
Oh, I will. And thank you. I appreciate everything you all have done. Anytime you can to get more coverage for your players and your team, I think is a wonderful thing. And I really appreciate what you all have done and the publicity you have given our team over the course of these 12 years. So I thank you all very much for giving us that chance to talk about Claiborne football.
Absolutely. Former head coach Barry Liles enjoying retirement now. We're going to take a time out here on Monday Night Sports Talk. When we come back, we'll try to find Scott, and we'll talk some LMU athletics as we return here on Monday Night Sports Talk.